The anima is not the soul of the woman, but the soul of the man, projected onto the woman. Carl Jung, she appears in silence. Not as herself, but as what you believe her to be. Not as a woman, but as the reflection of everything you lack. She wears your longing as her mask. She moves only because your soul is displaced. And while you stare enchanted, hypnotized, obedient, she programs you without ever speaking. This is not love. This is not connection. This is the anima. She is the invisible force beneath every romantic fixation, every unspoken ache, every collapse of will in the presence of a woman. She is not one woman. She is all of them blended and distorted by the hunger in your unconscious. She is formed not from her words, but from your unresolved emptiness. And she becomes your God not by force, but by projection. You kneel before her not because she commands you to, but because you forget who you are when her image appears. Jung does not comfort you. He does not tell you to love better. He does not instruct you to listen more. He warns you the anima, if left unconscious, will own you. You will follow her scent, her mood, her silence, believing it is your desire. But it is her grip. You will believe you are in control. But the mirror is in her hand. You will think you are choosing her. But it is she who is choosing what part of you to awaken, to use, to destroy. The anima is not malicious. She is instinct, archetype, programming. She does not love. She activates. And once activated, you no longer act, you react. Every gesture she makes becomes a command. Every withdrawal becomes a wound. Every soft glance becomes a prison. And you decorate the bars yourself. You think you are loving her, but you are only chasing the ghost of your own forgotten self. And while you chase, she feeds. This is the war Jung exposed, not between man and woman, but between man and his own soul, stolen by an image he calls love. The anima is not her face. She does not arrive as a stranger. She arrives as recognition, as familiarity, as the warmth you forgot you needed. But it is not her. It has never been her. You do not fall for her voice, her gestures, her lips. You fall into yourself, into the part of you you've buried, the part that screams for wholeness. She only reflects it back. That's why she feels essential. But it is projection, only projection. Jung said, "The anima is a factor of the unconscious, the archetypal image of woman present in the psyche of every man. She is not her body. She is your script. You wrote her long before she appeared, and that is how she destroys you quietly, not by cruelty, not by violence, but by becoming the mirror you never knew you built. You meet her eyes and see your mother, your lover, your savior, your loss, all at once. She does not speak, but you hear. You hear the echo of everything you crave. You call it destiny. You call it love. But it is programming. She feels magnetic because she pulls the forgotten parts of you, not to heal them, to use them, to recreate the cycle. She pulls you into the script. You repeat it. You suffer it. And you mistake the pattern for fate. You do not desire her. You desire the wound that she activates. She is not a person. She is a return to the place where your soul fractured. And that fracture becomes sacred in her presence. You kneel, not to her, to the illusion. You do not see her. You see yourself. Not the self that is strong, but the self that is missing. The anima wears that absence like a crown, and you serve it faithfully, not because you're weak, but because you're blind. Jung does not ask you to love her better. He asks you to see through her, to recognize that the soul you search for in her is the piece of you you abandoned. And until you reclaim it, she will keep arriving. Different name, same shadow, same destruction. She is not her face. She is your emptiness perfectly disguised. She is the mirror that bends you. She does not show you truth. She shows you distortion. She mirrors not who you are, but who you wish to be. And that is her first weapon reflection. You look into her and lose shape. You see approval where there is indifference. You see meaning where there is performance. You see eternity in a moment, simply because she smiled when you needed her to. But her mirror bends, subtly, just enough to make you doubt yourself. Just enough to keep you seeking her gaze again. You adjust. You correct your posture. You speak softer. You laugh where she wants you to. You become what fits the mirror. Jung warned, the man's task is to become conscious of the contents that the anima projects, but you don't. You remain unconscious, and so you serve. Every time she withholds, you ache. Every time she rewards, you glow. You believe it's love. But it's behavioral training. You're not loved. You're conditioned. She never tells you who to be. She doesn't need to. You bend before she speaks, because her silence holds more power than your voice. This is not romance. This is programming. One glance is enough. You stop thinking. You start adapting. For a taste of validation, you reshape your soul, and you call it devotion. You call it commitment. But it is erosion. You abandon your edge. You blur your boundaries. You polish yourself until you no longer resemble yourself. The mirror applauds, but the man fades. She does not destroy you with cruelty. She destroys you with reflection, with showing you who you wish you were, and keeping you dancing in front of that image. You think you're moving forward, but the mirror only loops. She doesn't chase you. She lets you chase the version of yourself that exists only in her gaze. And the longer you chase it, the more of your spine dissolves. This is how you disappear, not with a scream, but with a smile. You do not become hers, you become no one. She silently reprograms you. She does not raise her voice. She does not argue. She drifts. She glows. She turns her head slightly when you speak. And that is enough to destabilize your center. Not through logic, not through reason, through rhythm. She shifts the emotional current and your identity floats wherever she guides the stream. Jung said, as long as the anima is unconscious, she functions autonomously and causes in man emotional disturbances and fantasies. You call it chemistry. You call it tension. You call it the mystery of the feminine. But it is not mystery. It is reprogramming. You adjust when she's cold. You bend when she's distant. You correct your tone to soothe her silence. You trim your instincts to match her moods. Every emotional flicker she emits becomes a command, not spoken, activated. Your nervous system learns her like a religion. She does not need to tell you to change. She only needs to remove her warmth, and you panic. You rewrite yourself to earn it back. This is not a relationship. This is psychic erosion. You stop asking if you want her. You start asking if she still wants you. And in that shift, the man dies. You wake up in the shape she prefers, and you call it growth. But it is decay. She never asked you to change. That is the genius of the anima. She lets your fear do the work. She trains you without instruction. She softens your speech. She rounds your edge. She turns your spine into a suggestion, because you confuse affection with approval, and silence with disapproval, and disapproval with danger. You think you're learning to love her, but you're only learning to betray yourself. She destabilizes you by being unpredictable, not violently, softly, like fog, like perfume, like the absence of something you thought was eternal. You think it's about her, but it's about your programming. The anima doesn't love. She shapes. She doesn't nurture. She neutralizes. You think you're becoming more complete, but you're only becoming more dependent on her mood, on her validation, on the story she writes with her silences. You disappear line by line, not by accident, by design, and you call it love because you forgot what it means to be unshaped. Sexual power as psychological control. It begins with a glance, a touch that never lands, a delay in response. The arch of her back as she walks away, just slow enough to haunt your bloodstream. You think you want her, but it is not desire, it is subjugation. Jung knew the anima manifests first as eros, raw, magnetic, erotic energy. Not to liberate you, to bind you. You mistake her sexual presence for intimacy, but she does not open. She lures, not with skin, with suggestion. You become reactive. The tension burns, but she does not extinguish it. She maintains it, because that tension is power. Not power over your body, power over your will. You become compliant, hopeful. You hold your breath for her affection like a dog awaiting a hand. You do not command. You request. You do not act. You perform. For access, not to her heart, to her body. But the body is not the gift. The body is the hook, and you hang there, suspended in your own fantasies. She doesn't need to dominate you. You dominate yourself just to stay within her orbit. You silence your instinct. You betray your logic. You agree with lies, just to keep the promise alive, the promise of merging. But the anima does not merge. She dances just out of reach, because it is the reaching that reshapes you. She doesn't give you what you crave. She gives you delay. And that delay turns you into a beggar, a worshiper, a man who defines himself by what he hasn't yet touched. You call it connection, but it's programming. She uses the erotic not to unite, but to mold, to blur, to erase. Every curve becomes a command. Every breath becomes a blueprint. And you follow it not because you're lustful, but because you've mistaken longing for purpose. You think you desire her, but you only desire to be chosen. And that desire dissolves your spine. Jung warned unconscious erotic projection binds a man to illusion. But you feed it, because the illusion feels warmer than your own truth. So you obey, so you perform, so you kneel, not at her feet. At the threshold of the door, she never opens. And the longer you wait, the less of you remains. She is the architect of your collapse. You call it heartbreak. But heartbreak is the symptom, not the cause. The cause is deeper, older, invisible. You fell not because she left. You fell because the structure of your identity was built on her presence. And when she withdrew, everything crumbled. But she warned you without speaking. The anima always warns, in her mystery, in her detachment, in the way she gives you almost everything, but never all. That never all is the weapon. It keeps you leaning forward. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you hollow. Jung said, the anima is not just a vague figure in dreams, but an active system of reactions and expectations. She lives within you. She builds you from inside, but not as you, as a version she can control. She does not argue with your masculinity, she rewires it. You begin with clarity. You end with confusion, not from betrayal, from shape-shifting, from adapting, from losing track of what was yours. You fall not because she was cruel, but because you were never solid. You lived through her reflection. You measured your worth through her response. You built your spine out of her glances. And now it breaks, because the anima gives you a high-definition dream. She gives you euphoria. She gives you depth just enough to drown in. And when she vanishes, you don't lose her. You lose yourself. The part of you that was centered in her approval gone. The part of you that waited for her affection collapsed. The man you were around her, never real. You think the collapse is grief? But it is revelation. You were never held. You were only mirrored. And now the mirror is gone, and the image fades. You collapse not from loss, but from awakening, from seeing how much of you was fiction. She did not destroy you. She allowed you to destroy yourself slowly, elegantly, with romantic words and late-night confessions, with trembling hands and whispered promises. She didn't push. She simply opened the door to your own abyss, and you walked in because you thought she was salvation. But she was the architect, the builder of the temple in which you crucified your own masculinity. Only the dead center cannot be possessed. You have chased, you have adapted, you have bent until you shattered. And still she appears. New name, new scent, same silhouette, same script. Because the anima never leaves until you stop reflecting her. She survives in your gaze. She thrives in your reaction. She breathes when you bend. But when you become still, utterly still, she loses power. Jung called it individuation. The cold, brutal path back to the self, not the emotional self, not the romantic self, but the unshakable core beneath all programming. That core does not chase. It does not explain. It does not break. It watches her enter the room and does not shift. It hears her silence and remains unmoved. It sees through the mirror and finds no reason to bend. She tests. She withdraws. She offers the rhythm, the scent, the wound. But you do not dance. You let the fog pass. Because you have seen the mechanism. You have named the ghost. You have burned the script. There is no longing now, only clarity. She no longer triggers you. Because there is no hook left to sink into. No unresolved ache, no missing part, no hole she can fill. You are not half. You are axis. You are center. And the anima, the shapeshifter, the seductress, the mirror she dissolves. Because without projection, she cannot exist. Without your hunger, she has no language. Without your reaction, she vanishes. This is not ascension, it is subtraction, of illusion, of dependency, of myth. She was never real. Only the part of you that needed her was. And now that part is gone. You stand, not taller but deeper, not louder but unshakable. You no longer fear her distance. You no longer crave her warmth. You are no longer shaped by her presence or her absence. You do not punish. You do not forgive. You do not explain. You end the mirror. You end the reaction. You end the anima. And in that death, you return to yourself. The man without illusion. The man without need. The man without leash. You see now, she was never the one who destroyed you. You handed her the blueprint. You led her into the temple. And you lit the fire yourself. Because it was never her hands. It was your projections. Your need to be completed. Your addiction to being seen through someone else's eyes. The Anima was a mirror, a shadow, a ghost made of everything you refused to face. And she used it. Not because she is evil, but because she is instinct. She plays the role you write for her. She bends you because you offer the rope. She breaks you because you forget your center, but not anymore. Now you stand without reflection, without chase, without fantasy. Her glances no longer program you. Her silence no longer confuses you. Her affection no longer dictates your worth. You see the game, you see the unconscious script, and you tear it in half. You are not moved. Not because you are numb, but because you are rooted, centered, unwritten. She cannot destabilize what does not seek. She cannot haunt what does not chase. She cannot twist what does not bend. The anima is powerless now. Because there is nothing left in you for her to animate. No unresolved yearning. No half-built identity. You do not belong to her world, not anymore. You are no longer a man shaped by her reactions. You are the unshakable axis. You are the final word. You are the silence that does not beg. You are the gaze that sees through. There's no more illusion. No more softness to lure you. No more seduction to reprogram you. She may dance. She may withhold. She may whisper. But it falls against stone. You do not move because you no longer need her. Not her love, not her approval, not her body, not her attention. You are not her echo. You are not her reflection. You are not her project. You are complete, without chase, without validation, without illusion. You are the man Carl Jung described, not the one who is devoured by the anima, but the one who watches her vanish in the face of his stillness. No more roles, no more games, no more longing. Only law, only center, only silence. You do not react. You do not yield. You do not love. You are.